Senator Thom Tillis, he criticized the Trump administration's and DHS's response to the killing of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis, stating that their quick and uninformed comments discredited them and brought their credibility into question. Before I play the video, consider to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also share this video. Have a listen.
What's been your reaction to what they've said about Alex Pretty and what they claimed happened that day?
Well, I think they're doing the American people and the president a great disservice by not realizing how much attention is focused on these operations and how details and discipline matter. They spoke before they knew anything about what occurred on the ground. They didn't even implement the typical protocol that you would in an officer-involved shooting. As much to protect those officers as the scene of the incident, everything that goes into an investigation after a casualty, after a death. They talked too soon. It looked like they wanted to get ahead of a news cycle, and it really discredits it. It brings their credibility into question. And Jake, it's very important for people in North Carolina to know I've held every sheriff in North Carolina that was a sanctuary city jurisdiction accountable. We went after them. Our office filed a bill for justice for victims of sanctuary cities to make sure that if somebody was harmed by someone who was detained and not transferred to ICE, that they could sue that local government and get restitution. So I've made it very clear that I want law enforcement to work with each other, but you can't be situational. You can't expect that out of a Biden administration and Democrat mayors and then not expect us to lead by example by coordinating with state and local law enforcement. I believe that Noem is out of her depth. I think she's reached the Peter principle. She is not competent to run this organization, and I haven't even begun to talk about the failure on FEMA and disaster response in North Carolina, but I will be tomorrow on the floor.
Yeah, so you have called Noem a complete failure on that issue of disaster response, saying she doesn't know how to manage, that people who badly need resources are not getting them. As you know, North Carolina this weekend is facing the possibility of the heaviest snow in decades. We all saw what happened to the poor citizens of western North Carolina during that natural disaster. If DHS fails to provide adequate support this weekend, what would that mean for Tar Heels?
Well, I think it could be a tragedy. Keep in mind, I've done a comparison, I'll be sharing this tomorrow, between President Trump's first administration, which did an extraordinarily good job on disaster response, and the abysmal performance over the last 13 months in this Homeland Security or this FEMA administration under Noem's leadership. It's not even close. And that's what the American people and people in North Carolina need to know. We had an ice storm go through the mountains on top of the damage that Helene has caused. We still don't have I-40 open as it was before. It may not be till 2027. Now we may have enormous snowfall and flooding that comes after that, and they've got to be ready to respond. I'm glad that they released some $200 million today. I'm sure it's just coincidental that I'm starting to cast light on it, but that's a drop in the bucket to what they already should have had out to the local and state entities trying to recover from Helene.
Now, when we talk about ICE and their activities, we are also talking about abolishing them altogether. But there are possibilities right now for ICE, and Thom Tillis, he did discuss that in this particular interview, and he also discussed the immigration enforcement operation, how they should be conducted that, while he supports body cameras in de-escalation and de-escalation training. He opposes measures that would require officers to take off their masks due to safety concern for their families. Now, this is something a lot of people have problem with. I'm talking about the mask that ICE agents are wearing, because it does create panic. It does escalate the situation when you are approached by law enforcement officials and you don't even see their faces. It can freak out some people. And then obviously Tillis, he criticizes the current Homeland Security administrator for her quote-unquote too cute humor in naming operations, which he believes undermines the serious work of law enforcement agencies. Take a listen.
Democrats are now talking about withholding their votes on the government funding bill that's coming up soon, unless there are serious changes made to ICE and these immigration enforcement operations. They're not saying defund ICE, they're not canceling ICE, but they're talking about canceling ICE or getting rid of ICE, but they are talking about, for instance, a measure to saying ICE officers have to take down their masks. And there's a number of things that I'm sure you've heard from Senator Schumer. Body cameras, that sort of thing. Would you be willing to negotiate with Democrats on those changes?
Well, I think some of the reforms make sense. I think body cameras make sense. I think de-escalation training makes sense. I am concerned about the mask because I've seen people dox me. I've seen people take pictures that identify law enforcement officers and then put their families at risk. So I think that that's a step too far. They need to think it through. Look, again, the ICE officers on the ground, I thank them for their service and the work that they've done in the past. My problem is with when you have a Homeland Security administrator that thinks it's cute to name a camp Alligator Alcatraz and to name an operation in Maine Catch of the Day, and some respects, I think she's probably speaking the truth there. It's not a focused, data-driven apprehension strategy. It's catch of the day, and at least she's named it that way. But I'm tired of the too cute sophomoric high school kid sort of humor on a very serious subject. And we are absolutely tearing away at the fabric of the incredible work that Joint Task Force law enforcement agencies do every day. The FBI, the DEA, ICE, local sheriffs, police chiefs, state law enforcement. She is at the top. She is responsible for what I think is the single biggest step back in local law enforcement coordination and the effectiveness of Joint Task Force operations than anybody in an administration for the length of time I've been in public service.
I just want to turn to one other thing because I know you care a lot about the NATO alliance. The Danes were so upset by President Trump belittling the sacrifice of non-U.S. NATO troops in Afghanistan. They put Danish flags outside the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen, representing each one of the Danish troops who was killed in Afghanistan. Then the U.S. Embassy took those flags down. A State Department spokesman telling CNN that the embassy was unaware of the flag's significance. What's your response to that?
Well, I think it's absurd. I mean, the American people need to know that Denmark is a small country, about 5 or 6 million people. They lost as many lives per capita as the United States. So it meant as much to them and their population as the loss of life we had here. There is no place except for deep gratitude to every nation that went to Afghanistan to honor their Article 5 commitment to the NATO treaty and the NATO organization. If the president has any question about whether or not they'd answer the call, he should look back at the hundreds of lives that were lost by other member countries in defense of this nation after 9/11.
Tom Tillis, he said a lot of things that I don't agree with, especially when it comes to ICE and how they're conducting their operations. But I think what we all are getting is the urgency to change, to reform ICE, at least make them a lot more professional, and that can be done with training, because right now we know they do not get training as much as they should be. In fact, people are saying, senators, congressmen, congresswomen, they're saying that ICE, they're getting training online, which is totally unacceptable. And this is why perhaps they're wearing those masks, because they know they cannot handle situation. They're not trained to do so. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. See you in the next video.